It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends up, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker here on the Full Court Press. Thanks for tuning in, joining us on a Monday. A lot of different things to discuss on a Monday. A lot of reacting to what happened over the weekend. Weekend's always busy in the world of sports. And plenty of things happening today as well in relation to Utah State University. Transfer portal has been giving, but today it also takes away a little bit. So Aggies... it looks like they're going to be losing one of their defensive stars. So we'll get into who that is. But some of the additions coming in to help the Utah State defense in the future. So there's some exciting things happening for USU. But they're another school in the Mountain West losing a big-name player, part of their program. He's found a new home. And his former coach has also found a new home. So we'll get into that a little bit. Utah Jazz, they're in action tonight, taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder in Oklahoma City. And, of course, we need to recap what happened over the weekend for Utah State men's basketball. Nice win over Northwest Nazarene. It's not a big win, but it's a nice win. And what are the current standings throughout the Mountain West Conference? Where are the Aggies in the latest net rankings as well? So a lot of things to cover, including high school hoops. It was a busy weekend for high school basketball, too. So we'll try our best to cram it all in 2 short hours. And if you want to chime in, we always love to get your reactions as well. 435-339-0321.
Yeah, great.
Got to catch our breath here on a Monday, Jason.
Well, you got to catch your breath for a couple of minutes there. But, yeah, exciting weekend. You know, not a ton for Utah State. As you mentioned, their one over-the-weekend game, their key over-the-weekend game was against a Division II team, and that didn't provide a ton of excitement. It wasn't this, huge statistical game for the team, and it was also a Division II opponent, which in several different senses doesn't count. For instance, the Aggies' NET number, I think their NET rank may have changed, but that probably would have largely been around other teams.
Right, because of
moving
what
up and
other
down.
teams did or did not do.
Yeah, it can often change daily. In fact, I didn't even check what they were today. I did my average computer ranks today, and I guess I probably did see it, but I've forgotten it because I do 8 different computer rankings, so I can never remember which is which for a lot of these teams. But
Utah State, were they out of the net?
Yeah, where they're at in the net. Is it like
31.
31? Okay. I was thinking 34 or 31. I can't remember which. It's their highest ranking in any computer. For basically any group of rankings, NET is going to be the highest ranking for the Aggies. Then it's going to be like ESPN's BPI. It's like the lowest for Utah State.
I forgot to look at those today.
Yeah, like I said, I was looking at all of them because I updated.
You do like a composite.
Yeah, I do. I basically take. I think it's 8 different rankings. It's down because there's one ranking I was using last year hasn't put out anything this year. So I'm down to 8. But looking at that, Utah State, they're one of the few teams actually to move up. But that's including the UC Irvine because the last update I had was last Monday. I do this once per week. So the Aggies were able to jump, but they didn't move up as far as relative to the rest of the Mountain West. So for the Aggies, not a whole lot has changed for them relative to the rest of the conference. But the conference around them is moving a lot. You had losses from Colorado State, Nevada. They both lost. Pretty thrilling end to Colorado State's game. Against a pretty good St. Mary's team. I know St. Mary's is only 6-5 right now, but they're a pretty good team.
They're a pretty good team.
So
San Diego State almost laid an egg against UC Irvine.
Yeah,
had to claw their way back and eventually won that game in a narrow margin. But UC Irvine had the Aztecs, if I can speak, on the ropes, and that would have helped Utah State a little bit.
Yeah, it would have, and it actually kind of dropped San Diego State in those average rankings. And I'll just kind of go over how the teams rank in these average rankings. You got New Mexico. They're the new number 1 in the conference, narrowly over Colorado State. Colorado State making a decent drop, basically just with their loss. That's why they dropped. San Diego State, their average ranking number went down, but they're still number 3. Nevada fell from number 2 to number 4. No, they had the biggest drop. Their average rank went from like the 30s to the 50s. That was not. Who did they lose to again?
Who was that again?
Nevada.
Nevada.
I have to double check who they lost to.
They did lose to Drake.
To Drake, okay.
Yeah, and they lost by nearly 20 points, 72 to 53.
Yeah, so not the greatest showing for them. Utah State only slightly behind Nevada in average rank. Nevada's average rank is like 52. Utah State's 53.
But Drake is a top 50 net ranking team.
That's true. Drake is a good team. It's one that you kind of almost regret that they didn't end up playing the Aggies, because I think Drake would have played the Aggies. Because didn't Drake lose to Stephen F. Austin? Or I think they were
in the Cayman Islands?
They were in the Cayman Islands. They were one of the teams they could have played. But Drake ended up getting killed. Maybe it was by Akron they might have lost to. The Aggies, I think, were only one result away from facing Drake, if I remember correctly. I'd have to go double check.
I'm looking.
But it was one of the teams they could have ended up playing.
Yeah.
And Drake, I think, either Drake has like 1 or 2 losses the entire year, and one of those was pretty badly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Stephen F.
team.
Austin beat them 92 to 68.
Yeah, so that was kind of ended up being the surprise. And Stephen F. Austin, I don't think, has done spectacularly after the Cayman Islands. I don't think they've done bad, but it's kind of interesting. So, yeah, Utah State sitting in the top 5 in my average computer rankings, and they're kind of sitting firmly in that tier 2 of basketball. But I don't know. Last week, just looking at it as a whole, there was both positive and negative. It was positive because they beat UC Irvine and they did it pretty well. Clearly a good UC Irvine team. But that Northwest Nazarene game was probably the most worrying 31-point victory I've ever seen, because the Aggies won by 31, and they were clearly just the better team. They were more athletic. They were taller, faster, everything. Better shooters in most cases. But there were just so many mistakes in there. Little errors. I felt like every time I looked over at Danny Sprinkle, he was mad about something. Because there was a turnover here, a blown assignment on defense there. And Northwest Nazarene just couldn't take advantage of that because they're not on the same level as Utah State. As far as shooters, they're not great shooters. They're under 30% on threes this season. As a team, they shoot like 42%, which is pretty bad, for a team. So they just couldn't take advantage. They blew so many open layups, it was almost comical. How many times they had a shot at the rim and they just missed. So the Aggies won by 31 points because they played a team that was like incompetent that night. But the Aggies, and while it's probably not the worst the Aggies will ever play this season, it was a little worrying that they played that bad in some cases.
Yeah, 15 turnovers on the night for USU. But they had some high-flying plays.
Yeah, they did.
There were a lot of fun oops, alley-oop dunks.
Yeah.
And some great play by a couple different players. Oduje seems to continue to find his place coming off the bench for USU.
Yeah, he's been a great
regaining
shooter.
His confidence.
Yeah, he's shooting he's been the best shooter he's been. Like, his mid-range shot hasn't quite been there, but the trade-off there is that he's having his best three-point shooting season, which you'll kind of take. And maybe that mid-range shot will kind of come back for him, because that was his bread and butter when he was playing at Coastal Carolina. He was a mid-range savant. He was hitting a lot of those. But he was struggling with his threes, and somehow he's managed to swap those two. So kind of weird in that sense. But, yeah, there's some absolutely spectacular plays. And, of course, the starters, they seem to be the ones who are, like, locked in and playing really well. They did end up having some turnovers, but, like, you look at the start of the game. They go 19-2 in the first 4 minutes. I was like, holy cow. If the Aggies play like this, they might score 200 points. And technically at that moment, they might have been on pace for, like, 180. But, of course, that's 4-minute pace.
Right.
You can't extrapolate that over an entire 40 minutes. But still, like, that's how great they were playing. They were playing spectacularly. Defensively, they were shutting them down. It wasn't just that Northwest Nazarene was missing shots. They were getting poor shots, having turnovers, and the Aggies were just shooting layup after layup after layup, or like a wide-open three here. They were like 7 of 10 to start the game. And to be honest, they probably should have made 1 or 2 more shots. They're just little bunnies that they missed. So they played amazing. And then they put in 4 backups. Like the lineup they had out there was Ian Martinez. He was the one starter out there. Josh Uduje, who he's obviously a rotation player, but he's a backup right now. But then it was Khalifa Sacco, Carson Templin, and forgetting who the other guy out there was. Javon Jackson. That was the other one who was out there. So it was 4 reserve players, 1 starter. And after scoring 19 points in like 4.5 minutes, they scored 0 points for about 4 minutes. It was like a 12-0, maybe even a 14-2 run for Northwest Nazarene. Cut a 17-point lead down to 7. So I think it was 12-2 run in the end. It's like the backups didn't play very well. When the starters came back in, things got going a little bit more. And then that's kind of where that little dunk party in the kind of middle toward the end of the first half with Osborne and Falslev. The starters had come back in. They were getting steals, fast break points. So this game, the story was kind of that the starters are doing fine, but the reserves were a little lost at times. It felt like they weren't as locked in on defense or on offense. Because they had some guys out there who could score, but they just seemed like they didn't know what they were doing on offense. Like, who was going to score? Nobody seemed like they knew what they were doing. Whereas in the first 4 minutes, it was like, well, anybody can score because we're all just going to attack a clearly inferior team and do whatever we want. And the backups were like, I'm normally not supposed to shoot the ball, so what do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a little frustrating in that the game on Wednesday against San Diego was an opportunity to get a lot of run out of your bench and then in your rotation guys. And we knew, but we may not have known for sure just how much Utah State might dominate that game. But we knew, we had a better understanding that it was more likely to have a dominating performance against Northwest Nazarene on Saturday. And so to have a 6-minute stretch in the first half where you only get 2 points, that's early in the first half. I mean, that's rough. I mean, they got out of the funk, but that's certainly something that this coaching staff doesn't want to see when they know they've got a really tough week this week ahead of them and conference play right around the corner.
Yeah, I think you would have liked to have more momentum in the sense that you'd like to have played better and stuck to your principles. And like when I look at a game against a team like Northwest Nazarene, and you have this against any Division II opponent, a team that you're just clearly better than, it's a bye game or even an exhibition. And I was thinking of an analogy, and it's basically like in weightlifting where you start out and you're just lifting the bar. You don't put any weights on the bar. And the reason that even higher level weightlifters will do just the bar, like their max squat might be in the 200 to 300s, and they're starting their warm up by squatting 45 pounds. They're not doing it to show off. They're not doing it so they can like throw the bar and see how quickly I can do a squat. It's because they're trying to develop technique. They're making sure the technique is right so that when they do the 200 to 300 pound squat, they're not screwing up. They're not hurting their joints or their muscles, where you can do actual, damage to yourself if you're not using the right technique. So this game against Northwest Nazarene was about the technique. Heck, I talked about this on Friday, where it was like, you analyze this game by the details. How well does Utah State play, like, compared to how well, do they do their defensive assignments? Are they executing on offense, not, making stupid plays? That's where you judge the Aggies, not by the final score, because the final score was kind of deceptive, and Danny Sprinkle said as much after the game. So the game was closer than it felt. And it was just the Aggies playing a team that didn't play very well that night. And the Aggies didn't play very well either, and so you're worried. Like, it's the equivalent of the Aggies, benching a 45-pound bar, but they have the worst technique you've ever seen in your life. And that worries you, because what happens when you face a tougher test? And luckily, I think you do have the San Diego game where they played a lot better, and the Aggies have largely played better. So you can maybe just count this as a one-off.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I think sometimes, as much as a coach will try to get it in your head that we got to take every opponent seriously. Players know they're playing down. They know that this is a lower division school, that that they're going to be better athletically, better skill position, better program. And so in their minds, even though they're trying to be coached to take it seriously, how serious do they really take it? And sometimes that creeps in. Despite all the best efforts from head coach and the coaching staff, especially when you jump out to a lead like they did, and the players are like, okay, we know what we're going to do against these guys. And then you just kind of coast a little bit. And the focus and the determination and the attention to detail just isn't there, because, in the back of your mind, you're thinking that you don't need it. We can still beat these guys, even if we're just going out there and having some fun.
Yeah, and so that does worry you a little bit, but as long as they're able to recapture that, because the thing is, the Aggies may have done a little bit of that against SUU, and, Coach Sprinkle lit into his guys after that Southern Utah game, and that whipped the team back into shape in a real hurry.
We've seen a big difference.
And so I think even though they didn't have the same scare that they did against Southern Utah, where the game was a lot closer than maybe they were expecting, based on preseason ranking, after a film session where Sprinkle goes through and says, here's all the things you did wrong, and it's like every single play you did something wrong. Not quite every single play, but, a lot of plays. Then that's something that I think will get on them. These are competitive guys, and they clearly work hard, and they clearly hustle. These are guys who I don't want to act like this guy is falling after a 31-point win after a D2 team.
Yeah, no.
But I'm just saying this was not them playing up to their potential, and they're going to have to do that this next week. And I'm fairly confident that a good film session, good couple of practices, Danny Sprinkle will light into him enough. Say, look, you don't do nearly as well as you should have. There's some good things, but here's all the bad things. We're going to work that out of your system. We're going to go on the road to Santa Clara, face San Francisco, and we're going to see the Aggies playing their best, at least hopefully. Because that's what this team needs to learn, is to play like champions every single night. We've seen nights where they play at a caliber of being the Mountain West champions. But they need to do that every single night. And that's the thing this team doesn't know how to do yet. And they're going to learn.
Yeah, that consistency for a full game. They're 9-1. So you're right. We don't need to have an attitude like the sky is falling here. But this is. And I think that's something that Coach Sprinkle is trying to get it across to his guys, is that, look, we've got a brutal stretch staring at us on the schedule, and that is the Mountain West schedule. And really it starts on Saturday with San Francisco. Then you've got Santa Clara's on Wednesday. Don't overlook them because it's on the road. But that's a quad one opportunity on Saturday. Then the following week, ETSU, they're not good. Then a little bit of a break, and then you're right into conference play right after the new year. So it's some time to fine-tune some things, but to continue to dial things up to improve just the little things, because it's not going to be easy in conference play. And I know Coach Sprinkle has been trying to get that through his team's heads, but I think Saturday was, hey, we're just going to go out and have some fun. There's turnovers and things that need to be better, but you could tell by their style of play, they just wanted to go out and have some fun.
Yeah,
and that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah, it can be okay as long as you can, recover from that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is how they play on Wednesday will be okay. Yes, Saturday was just we're going to go have some fun. But if it lingers thinking that's their new style, that's not their style. That is not Danny Sprinkle's Utah State way. And so it will not translate to or yield a victory on Wednesday if that's their lack of focus that carries with them.
Yeah, because they need to have things. We talk about this team and keep harping on them and talk about things they need to improve. It's because, this team is suddenly showing a potential. Like, they're flashing this potential that we weren't expecting. Like, there's kind of a hope that, Utah State has been, close to the top of the Mountain West for several years now. Ever since Craig Smith got here, every year they've been close-ish to the top of the Mountain West, often at the top in a couple of cases. Weren't necessarily expecting that, but here they are. As I said, as far as like average ranks, a lot of which are beginning to cut out the preseason bias that they had. NET doesn't have any preseason bias. And here we are, the Aggies are sitting at 5th based on these computer rankings. Like a hair away from being 4th. And not all that far behind teams that are in the top 3. And they're 9-1. Like, so bring back that old, phrase, pressure is a privilege. The Aggies are facing real pressure, and it never really goes away. Because, they're 9-1. And they've done very well to get there. They've exceeded my expectations in a lot of different ways.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, but now, the old goal was, all right, get to 18, 19 wins, and, that's a good first year for Danny Sprinkle, rebuilding year. Well, expectations change when you start a season 9-1. People aren't content with 18, 19 wins if you start the year 9-1. You're starting to look at 25 wins.
Yes.
Yeah, if they end the year at 19 and whatever, it means they went like 500 the rest of the way, which wouldn't be acceptable for this team, based on how they've started. So
yeah,
pressure's only going to keep growing, and the challenges are only going to get better and better. Because you're going to face 3-4 quad 1 games at least in Mountain West schedule, as opposed to like the one in non-conference schedule, which they haven't even gotten to yet.
Right, which hasn't happened yet. 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in. Recapping Utah State's game over the weekend against Northwest Nazarene. Look at the latest in the rankings that are out there. We've talked about the net rankings, but what about individually? The player rankings for Utah State players nationally across all of college basketball, and maybe even where they rank among their peers in the Mountain West. And what are the latest standings in the Mountain West? We'll discuss all that coming up on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
As the year comes to a close, all of us here at Aegis Healthcare want to express our heartfelt gratitude.
This holiday season, we reflect on the privilege of being part of your lives, offering care, support, and compassion when you need it at most.
To our amazing staff who work tirelessly to provide exceptional care, thank you.
To our colleagues, neighbors, and friends, we extend our warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season.
As we look forward to the new year, we're excited to continue serving with even more dedication and innovation.
From all of us at Aegis Healthcare,
we wish you a Merry Christmas and a joyful holiday season.
Thank you for letting Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, the Allergy Clinic, and the Hearing Aid Center take care of your family medical needs this year. Make sure you call now for an appointment before the end of the year to utilize your cafeteria funds. Located in Providence and the new Three Peaks Medical Plaza, North Logan. The entire staff, along with Dr. Benyon, Blotter, and Robinette, wish you a safe and wonderful holiday season. Go to CacheValleyENT.com for details. Most insurance products, including Select Med, are accepted.
Beezer Lock and Key specializes in securing your world with their expertise in locks, keys, and hardware. Every aspect of their services is meticulously tailored to ensure your safety. They offer a vast selection of hardware brands and access control options, along with custom master key systems. With Beezer Lock and Key, you have control of your facility's access 24/7. For 28 years, Beezer has provided top-notch security solutions that stand unmatched in the industry. Visit 4th North, 1st West, and Logan, or go to BeezerLock.com to discover more.
Prodigy Brewing is the perfect place to meet up with family and friends this holiday season. Whether you're sipping on a carefully crafted brew, enjoying a delicious juicy burger, or biting into a sizzling wood fire pizza, Prodigy Brewing is the place to be. Come in for Trivia Tuesdays or with friends and family to celebrate the season. Voted best craft beer and bar and grill in northern Utah. Cheers to making unforgettable memories at Prodigy Brewing on Center Street in downtown Logan. Prodigy Brewing, extraordinary service and family friendly.
If cost is preventing you from calling an attorney after your accident, you can stop worrying now. You can call the Advocates and discuss your case with an experienced Cache Valley attorney at no cost to you. At the Advocates, when we say you pay zip, nil, nothing, we mean it. Our consultations are free and we don't get paid unless we win your case. Let us be your advocate and we will fight for the settlement you deserve without you ever opening your wallet. Call 801-355-5550 or chat online at utahadvocates.com.
It's the Full Court Press, weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. If you want to chime in, always love to hear from you. 435-339-0321, 9315. Earlier in the show, Dunk City for USU.
Yeah, there was a lot of dunks. I mean, I think there were 7 or 8 in the first half alone. Great Osborne. It's not often, when I sit down there on court level and I'm not allowed to cheer, and I usually, I don't. Usually I'm not reacting. I'm sitting there with a little stone face, just sitting there. Yeah, but that got like an audible, like, oh!
It's hard not to contain.
It's an involuntary action. And part of that was because from where I was sitting, Mason threw up the lob. And from where I was sitting, I was like, he overthrew him by about 6 feet. Like, it looked like he completely overthrew him, and there was no chance Osborne was going to get to it. And like a second or two later, he's throwing it down on somebody. Like I said, it was just like, oh my gosh, like it was so unexpected based off where it looked like that pass was going. So it was one of the better dunks in a while at Utah State.
Yeah, there were some fun dunks, several lobs.
Yeah, and then Mason obviously got going 3 straight dunks, 3 straight possessions. He was getting a dunk, one in the half court where he posterized the guy of his own, and then a couple of fast break dunks for him. So a lot of fun. We haven't yet seen the Ian Martinez poster, but we'll get there. And he talked about that after one of the games. He's like, he talked about a play they've drawn up. So we'll see if he throws it down on somebody. He might be the biggest leaper of anyone on the team, which is saying something given some of the guys they got out there. But boy, he's an athletic kid.
Well, those dunks helped Mason Falslev with his overall field goal percentage. He is 23rd in the country in field goal percentage at 64.7. He's a guard.
Yeah, you're not supposed to shoot that high when you're a guard.
Those numbers are usually reserved for power forwards and centers who live at the rim.
Yeah, and Falslev, he's generally shot mostly around the rim. Like, that's where a high percentage of his shots, I should probably double-check what percentage it's, more than normal for a 6'3 guard, which, one, is kind of crazy that he's able to get to the rim that often. But then he's also finishing, which, as I've discussed, that's tricky for a guard to do. But he has shot some of the more difficult ones. He's put up a couple of floaters. Something that's going to have to be in his bag. And he's shooting threes. Somewhat low volume. It's around, I think, 2 per game. But still, he's shooting threes, which is often what drags down a guard's overall field goal percentages. They're taking tougher shots, so they have lower field goal percentages. But, yeah, Mason just still going. Still chugging along. I don't know if it's going to last. Once Mountain West play hits, we'll see how, if players are able to guard him better, but he's been incredible for a freshman as far as taking on a scoring load and being a reliable scoring guard, for the Aggies.
So I just had some fun with numbers today. If you followed me on Twitter, then I had a lot of data dump today. The net rankings, Ken Palm, NCAA individual statistics, team statistics. I only focused on top 50. If Utah State or an individual player were in the top 50, then I put that out there. Great Osibor, he's in the top 50 in a number of categories. 9th in double-doubles, 12th in field goals, 15th in free throw attempts, 26th in points, also 26th in field goal percentage, 30th in rebounds, 34th in blocks, 37th in blocks per game, 39th in points per game, and 41st in rebounds per game and free throws made. The dude's just crushing it.
Yeah, he is. We talked about this last week where he's one of the best players in the state. And right now, he's probably, I don't know how some of the other newcomers in the conference are doing, but I can't imagine there's a better newcomer to the conference right now, where I expected Osborne to probably average around 14, 15 a game this season. I thought he'd jump from the 10 he was averaging last year in just 20 minutes. Put him into a bigger role. He plays another 5-10 minutes per game. He'd average like 14 or 15. No, the dude's about doubling his scoring output from last season, which is, and I think he'll largely
doubling his rebound output too.
Yeah, and I think he'll largely maintain. I don't think he's going to stay above 19 or 20. He's already going down a little bit. Of course, some of that is not playing as much the last 2 games. But I think even through Mountain West play, when the competition gets tougher, he's probably still going to be sitting around 17, 18 on the year, and 8 to 10 rebounds per game. He's going to continue putting up these kind of numbers and be one of the better players. There will be an argument for him to be all Mountain West. So it's just crazy how good of a season he's having.
And let's not leave out the number one guy, Darius Brown. He is first in the country in 3 different categories: assist-to-turnover ratio, assists, and assists per game. He is number 1 among thousands of basketball players at this level. It's incredible.
And it's pretty insane to see a guy, leading in both assists and assist-to-turnover ratio. Because usually when you're dishing out a ton of assists and being a big part of the offense, handling the ball that much, you're going to commit some turnovers. A lot of times it'll just be a guy will lead the league in assist-to-turnover ratio because he's averaging like 5 assists to 1 turnover. He's just having a pretty spectacular year. This guy's averaging like 9 assists per. It's like 8 or 9 assists per game and like the 2 turnovers. I think less than 2 turnovers. It's crazy how efficient he is with the ball and how rarely he gives up gives up a bad pass or loses the ball. He's just
highly efficient.
Yeah, and that's what you desperately need for a young, improving team, is a guy that when you hand him the ball, he's not giving it up. That's usually what burns young, improving teams, is that a lot of times they're talented, and they've got shooters, scorers, but they can't hang on to the ball to save their lives. But when you got a guy like Darius Brown, who's just able to never turn the ball over, it really helps.
It's very impressive. As a team, Utah State is first in the country in field goal percentage. I'm not going to go through all of them, just some of they're in the,
So they're first in the country in field goal percentage?
First in the country in field goal percentage at 53.2. 8th in the country in assists per game, mostly because of Darius Brown. Tied for 9th in winning percentage. They're 9-1. There's a lot of teams that are 9-1.
Yeah.
And then 11th in effective field goal percentage. But maybe you can help me, Jason. What is the difference between field goal percentage and effective field goal percentage?
So effective field goal percentage, essentially, I talked about how guards will have their field goal percentage bumped down because of 3-pointers. Effective field goal percentage, I forget the exact calculation, but it basically helps to convert a 3-pointer into it gives you credit for hitting threes, basically. So, again, I can't remember the exact, but like if you had a player who shoots, if you had a center who's only shooting 2-pointers and a guard who's shooting a bunch of 2s and 3s, there's a world in which they can have the exact same effective field goal percentage, even though they're shooting different types. And the guard might have like 5 to 10% lower actual field goal percentage, but again, because that player is shooting a bunch of 3s, it calculates it to give you a bonus for hitting a 3. Like, I think hitting a 3-pointer in the effective field goal percentage basically counts for 1.5 field goals made. That makes sense.
Okay.
I'd have to double-check the calculation, but it does an adjustment to give you more credit for hitting 3s to give you that boost. And it makes sense because if you hit a 3-pointer, it's worth more points. So you kind of adjust that. So
okay,
it's basically an adjusted 3-point percentage or adjusted field goal percentage.
To the text line, 8968 texting in. I saw that there was a player for the Utes with the last name of Keda. Is that any relation to the one that played for the Aggies?
Is it spelled differently, though?
It is spelled differently.
It's like Keita or something like that.
Yeah, and Kiba Keita, Keita, and he is from Mali. So definitely a different place.
Yeah.
Spelled differently and from a different country.
Well, of course, isn't it Keita versus Keta? Because Neemias Keta, I believe.
Neemias Keta, yeah.
And then it's Keita, I think is how that particular name is pronounced, that spelling.
That's quite the international roster there for Craig Smith.
Yeah? I mean, he had an international roster at Utah State.
He did.
And recruited international players.
He's got players from Nigeria, Canada, Taiwan, Mali.
And that could be a big key for, and Craig Smith obviously
Serbia.
has a lot of his roots in the mid-major level. And mid-majors can often thrive recruiting international players because you're trying to find those diamonds in the rough. I mean, that's where Craig Smith found Keta. Found him in some random Portuguese kid who, it turns out he's an NBA caliber center. Just found him in the backwoods of Portugal. So, and found guys from Australia and all that. I don't know if Sean Bairstow was a Craig Smith recruit, but, can find guys in a lot of different places, hiding out in Eastern Europe, Australia, or I guess the Iberian Peninsula again, if you're Keta. So
that's true.
Sometimes you try.
Craig Smith finally has that Utah team playing well.
Yeah, he's got them going. They've not been bad under him, but clearly have not lived up to being a Pac-12 team, and obviously the grand history of Utah basketball in general. But yeah, getting that win over BYU is certainly a big deal for them. And BYU, they've played kind of a weak schedule, but they're also murdering the teams on their schedule.
Right.
So it's kind of that balance of you don't want to say they got exposed because they lost by like 4 points on the road to a top 30 NET team, but BYU will be a team to watch. Are they as good as the spectacular team they've played so far? Are they that good? Are they? I think they're 2 or 3 in the NET now. They were 1.
They were up there pretty high. They're number 3 right now.
Yeah, number 3. So they dropped a couple of spots again with a narrow loss on the road to a pretty good Utah team. So it'll be interesting to keep track of those because basketball in the state of Utah has been pretty good this year. And Weber State fell off slightly from a pretty dang good start, and their win over St. Mary's doesn't look quite as good, but still, Utah State, BYU, Utah, all looking great. Weber State's certainly not bad, and they've got one of the better players in the state right now in Dylan Jones. So, and I haven't kept track of UVU and Utah Tech and SUU very well, so I don't recall exactly how they're doing.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. Actually, we need to take a time out here on the Full Court Press. When we come back, we can do an update on those other schools if we want, but also what are the latest standings in the Mountain West? It was a busy weekend throughout the conference. We've mentioned some of those schools, and what are the latest standings for high school basketball as well? It was a busy week up here in northern Utah last week, and what are the latest standings for Region 11 high school basketball? We'll discuss next on the Full Court Press.
Check out the new Liberty Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in beautiful Montpelier, Idaho. We've got friendly staff, great service, fresh inventory, and the same values you expect in a small town. Montpelier, Idaho, a small town with great people to serve you, the people of Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah. You can now see most inventory online too at libertycdjr.com. We're the new Liberty Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram in Montpelier with warranty forever.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. Life is good. Life at My Mattress is good too. Why might I say that? Because today is a good day to slay a Goliath. The other day I went into a mattress store here in Logan that has 2,500 stores across the country. I'd say that's a Goliath. We were 20% less expensive on every bed that we both offer. We may not have 2,500 stores, but we are number 1 in Cache Valley. Better product and better prices. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally? Only at My Mattress.
This is Santa Claus. I'm here to tell you about Daryl's Appliance, your one-stop shop for all things jolly and appliance-related. Right now, you could save up to 40% on scratch and dent appliances. They may have a few dings and dents, but who doesn't during the holiday season? Plus, they're giving you an exclusive 2-year parts and labor warranty on all scratch and dent appliances.
Daryl's. Find them west on Airport Road. Open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
Holiday parties and events at the Riverwoods Conference Center offer a festive and fun holiday atmosphere. Paired with catering from Elements Restaurant, your special occasion can include tasty hors d'oeuvres, delicious entrees, and decadent desserts that always deliver excellence. Now accepting reservations for this holiday season. The Riverwoods Conference Center and Elements Restaurant easily accommodate large or small events. Visit theriverwoods.com or call 750-5151.
Don't get caught without power to your home or business. This is Tyler with Golden Spike Electric. We offer Generac backup generators to keep your home or business warm, avoiding frozen pipes, loss of valuable food, or even a flooded basement. Golden Spike Electric is certified and factory trained, so you know it will be installed right and properly maintained. Contact Golden Spike Electric so you'll never be without power again. Online at gsegenerators.com. We also service other brands, Golden Spike Electric and Generac, power you can count on.
Breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
So looking at the, first we have to answer the question that was posed before we went to break. How's Utah Valley, Utah Tech, Southern Utah, how are some of those other schools doing so far? And, doing okay. Nothing too crazy. But right now, Utah Valley, they're 6-4. Utah Tech is 5-4. Southern Utah, kind of an underwhelming 3-6. They've been competitive in several games. Took the Utes to the wire, but just struggled to find wins. And then Weber State coming in at 5-3 right now in their Big Sky Conference.
Yeah, so I guess at this point you're mostly focused on BYU, Utah, Utah State, and then Weber State. I think they'll do pretty well in the Big Sky. So. Others struggling a little bit. UVU and SU just kind of got killed in the. Of course, the Aggies got killed in the portal, but they managed to recover a little easier. UVU not quite doing as well recovering. Then SU they lost. I think they're one of their top scorers. I think they might have graduated, but they had I'm trying to remember his name. It was a guard, like a 6'4" guard, and I can't remember where he went. But he was like a double-digit scorer. Then they lost their center. I knew all their names during the offseason because I was tracking where they go and if they ended up with the offers from Utah State. But I've suddenly forgotten all their names. But yeah, SU losing a couple of key guys. UVU, they lost their coach. They lost like their top 2 or 3 players. So they kind of got murdered. UVU's been getting the Utah State treatment as far as...
Madsen's not there anymore?
Yeah, he moved to Cal.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And he took like 2 of his players with him.
That's right.
He took I seen the camera the centers, and he was like a 7-foot guy, averaged like 3 blocks a game. I suddenly can't remember anybody's name. I was tracking all of these guys in the transfer portal like all off season. And that center, he was applying for a waiver to play, and I think he got it. Maybe. I have to double check. One of the UVU guys was denied a waiver of eligibility, and his career is over now. Trey Woodbury. That's the one name I can remember out of all these different guys.
He was a good shooter, wasn't he?
He was a good shooter, could score. But yeah, he'd played 5 years, and one of those he's like injured, and I think he was trying to get a medical waiver for that year to play again, but they denied him, which I thought was stupid. They should have let him play. But he would have gone to Cal. He wouldn't have stayed at UVU. He was trying to go to Cal.
He would have followed Madsen. Yeah, makes sense. So, just quickly looking at the latest standings in the Mountain West Conference, kind of alluded to a few of the games that happened over the weekend. St. Mary's beating Colorado State in Fort Collins. So Colorado State drops a few notches in the top 25 poll. They're still ranked, but St. Mary's winning 64-61. San Diego State narrowly defeating UC Irvine in Viejas 63-62. Wyoming beat Stephen F. Austin, that was an interesting one to pay attention to. A previous opponent versus a future opponent for USU. And there was another one of those. So Wyoming wins by 8 in that one in Laramie. And then in Henderson, Nevada, this is the Jack Jones Classic, New Mexico beating Santa Clara. So these are 2 future opponents for Utah State, but New Mexico beating them 93-76. Aggies will play at Santa Clara on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's one that caught my eye a little bit. So, okay, does that mean it's easier for the Aggies? But I think one thing I've learned is that in basketball you can never just compare same opponents, just because there can be key matchups that make things all different. I mean, that's something I saw. You keep talking about like the 2018 or 2019 like high school season around here with Region 11, where all the teams at the top kept sweeping each other. And so in basketball, it's hard to look at similar opponents and say, all right, they beat them and we beat them, therefore we're going to beat this other team. Like, that just doesn't work.
Right.
It's
really hard to do.
Yeah, you can't pull it off because, for one, you play different. Just there's enough human variation because these guys are all humans that you're not going to play to the same level every night. We were just talking about Utah State against Northwest Nazarene. They didn't play as well against the Division II team as they did against the Division I team in San Diego. San Diego would probably kill Northwest Nazarene. So it's like, Aggies played better against the better opponent, worse against the worst opponent. Heaven knows, they might play their worst game of the year against Santa Clara, or they might play their best and beat them by like 40. Who knows?
Right now, UNLV, the only team in the Mountain West with a losing record. They lost to Loyola Marymount over the weekend.
Yeah, kind of following a little bit. That's a team that we were expecting to be in that top 5 or 6. And
yeah, start to try to make a little bit of a rebound here with Coach Kruger. Get settled in with his coaching style and recruiting, but it hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah, they've got some like high-profile recruits, but yeah, just not living up to it. I said I had my average computer ranks for the Mountain West. They're sitting at 7th, and they're falling still. They're below 100 right now, so not doing so hot.
Yeah. So right now, only Colorado State, New Mexico, Utah State, and Nevada. All 4 of those teams only have 1 loss. So good start for the upper part. San Diego State has 2 losses on the year. But the computer's still liking the top half of the Mountain West so far in various different rankings, and so a lot of the players are standouts throughout the college basketball at this level as well.
Yeah, you look at the average ranks, you have 5 teams that are inside, of the top 5, Utah State's the lowest ranked. They're at 53. So if the NCAA tournament happened now, you'd probably get 4 in. Utah State would kind of be on the edge. Maybe Utah State and Nevada would kind of be on the edge there as far as being able to get an at-large. So, yeah, top of the conference looking good because, yeah, you've had UNLV and Boise State not play as spectacularly as expected, but Colorado State, who, I mean, they were kind of in the middle-ish. I think I picked them to be number 2 in the conference, but they were kind of in that 4 or 5 range, but they've jumped into the top 2. And then Utah State's obviously jumped from 9 to 5. So even though Boise State and UNLV haven't lived up to their super high expectations, you've had 2 teams filling their place. And to be honest, I expect Boise State to bounce back. They're sitting at number 6, but I don't think they're going to stick there for long as far as being the 6th, rated team in the conference.
Right. Yeah, they'll be very dangerous in conference play for sure. Looking at standings in high school basketball, it was a busy weekend this last week. There was a North versus South Classic.
I forget what adjective they throw on the end. The Classic Showcase Tournament.
I don't know.
It's a round robin little showcase. That's what it is.
Right. So there were 3 teams. There was Bear River, Skyview. There was more than 3 teams.
As Bear River, Skyview, Logan, and Ridgeline were all involved in there. Bear River and Skyview played against 3 teams that were from the South. Logan played against 2 of them. Ridgeline filled in the last one for Logan. And it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
So, overall, pretty good for all those teams. Logan did well. They went 2-0. I believe Ridgeline won their game. I suddenly forgot to double-check how they did in that one. But I know, again, Logan came out pretty well because they went 2-0. They didn't play the toughest teams. And I think that's maybe where this tournament may not have been the greatest because, those Region 9 teams aren't looking, at least the ones that came up here.
Yeah.
Weren't, Cedar, they came up from the South, and they're still winless.
Yeah, that was not a great showing for some of those schools. Some of those, I'm trying to remember which specifically, but there were a number of schools in Region 9 in southern Utah who their style of play was pass the ball around the horn forever, milk the clock, and then eventually you get try to get a shot off. But the shot clock has fundamentally changed how they view basketball in several schools in southern Utah. So some of them, coaching-wise and players, they're trying to learn how to speed up what they normally do with their actions. So some of them, I think, are still struggling with that a little bit. But for the schools up here, not a problem. They're used to that. They're used to getting into their offense and executing plays quickly. But we're seeing pretty good basketballs throughout the Region 11. Skyview is a team that's struggling. Their star player hurts his knee. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. They were able to finally get a win on Saturday, and this is a team trying to find their way to discover who else can now step forward and help this team. Liam Guthrie seems to be certainly answering that call and helping kind of lead the team as the newcomer for Skyview. But we had some close finishes through some of these games. Green Canyon had a game that went into overtime in a surprise game with Layton Christian that was added on Friday. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we had a close game on Saturday as well. So we had some pretty fun, exciting games. Some of them did come down to the wire.
Yeah, Skyview against Cedar. Again, Cedar, they were the winless team, and Skyview obviously struggling. They couldn't, do spectacular against Cedar. Of course, Logan actually struggled with Cedar as well. And, Logan's undefeated, and they went into the second half only up by like 4 points against the Reds. So don't want to dig on Skyview just because they only won by 2, because they weren't the only team to narrowly pull one out over Cedar. But yeah, 58-56. Skyview, again, ending that. You talk about they struggled. They were on a 4-game losing streak, and they end that. But, yeah, just overall, good stuff. Good start for a lot of these teams. Logan and Green Canyon remain undefeated. Bear River Mountain, Chris Ridgeline all only have 1 loss. So, liking what I'm seeing out of Region 11 basketball so far. And a lot of great play from a lot of great players.
Yeah, we're going to take a time out here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, a quick update on the standings of girls basketball in Region 11. That's next here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
It's never too cold or wet to get rid of that old vehicle. Now is the time to earn extra cash for the holidays by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles, paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. I'd like to invite you to learn more about us. Since 1997, we've been Utah's premier one-stop shop for home medical equipment. What sets us apart at Alpine Home Medical is the superior level of customer service. We provide home oxygen, CPAPs, wheelchairs, scooters, breast pumps, and so much more. Come on down and get to know us.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Visit alpinehomemedical.com.
Happy holidays from the entire team at Adams Wealth Advisors. As we celebrate the joy of this season, it's also time to plan for a financially sound future. Wondering about tax strategies or required investment distributions? Adams Wealth Advisors has the answers. The Adams Wealth team is here to guide you through any complexities and ensure a prosperous new year. Happy holidays from Adams Wealth Advisors, where achieving your financial goals is their mission. Call today to schedule an appointment, 752-1702, or search Adams Wealth Advisors online.
If you're thinking about getting engaged this holiday, shop S.E. Needham Jewelers. We always offer an integrity price guarantee. In fact, at Match Quality, you'll find our prices to be as low or lower than any store in the state. We consistently beat any 50 to 70% off sales, internet pricing, or so-called wholesale deals. In fact, we even price our diamonds at internet pricing. So you'll get S.E. Needham quality at internet prices. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Northern Utah and Southern Idaho's home for sports. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
If you drive a diesel, it'll run better when you treat the fuel with Stanadine, House, or Power Service. Get that at your local Napa Auto Parts stores. There's 5 to choose from, closest to where you may be. There's 5 locally owned businesses between Preston and Providence. That's Napa Auto Parts. They sponsor the Dan Patrick Above the Noise segment coming up here in just a few minutes. So we'd mentioned Utah or the Region 11 boys basketball standings, and looking at how things are in Region 11 for the girls, bit of a surprise.
Yeah, it's Yeah, we've got a lot of teams in boys basketball. They're all sitting at like 0 losses or 1 loss. You have the one team with a losing record. Couple of teams struggling. Logan, they're sitting at 1-5. Mountain Crest at 0-5. Now, those were 2 teams kind of at the bottom of the standings last year, so rebuild's just not going the way they want to. Bear River sitting at 2-3. But kind of where there is a surprise, as you mentioned, is there's kind of the big 3 in girls basketball here in Region 11, and it's Ridgeline, Skyview, and Green Cane.
Yeah.
They've been the dominant forces for as long as I can about remember. And Ridgeline, they're sitting at 3-2. Skyview's 3-2, and Green Cane, they're doing fine at 5-1. But the thing is, for Ridgeline, they're playing a tough schedule.
Yeah, they are testing themselves.
Those 2 losses, which, mind you, those are their first losses since the championship game of like 2 years ago. So
yeah,
it was against a couple of teams from Texas. So tough teams, and heck, they have to be really good teams. If they're managing to beat this Ridgeline team. Right,
and they did go and beat Bingham. No, not Bingham. Lone Peak.
Is Lone Peak.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the top teams here in this state. So Ridgeline's clearly good. They're just playing some of the best teams. They're having to go out of the state in some cases, or up to 6A, to find teams that really challenge them. And they've found some teams that really challenge. They beat Lone Peak by 4, lose, get held to 34 points by a team from Texas. So they're challenging themselves. They're going to come back with a vengeance. I'd expect Ridgeline to probably run the table when they come back, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Strange things can happen.
Good tests early on. More on the Full Court Press next hour.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. When dealing with the Dallas Cowboys, you always have to be careful not to overreact. Over the past decade, that's exactly what we've done. Dallas looks good during the regular season, but come January, the team disappears. There's still 4 games left, but after last night's big win over the Eagles, it's hard not to be impressed by that loaded roster. Dak Prescott is currently the NFL's leading candidate for MVP. The offensive line remains an area of strength, and they've got some playmakers. CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, Jake Ferguson. The defense, pretty good too, with Micah Parsons, one of the best in football. You have Deron Bland leading the NFL with 8 interceptions. Not to mention kicker Brandon Aubrey, the first player in NFL history to hit multiple field goals of 59 yards or more in a single game. He's also perfect on the season. That's dominance in all 3 phases of the game. The Cowboys, excessive success at home over the past 2 seasons. They are peaking at the right time in the NFC. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.